Welcome back to Can Business Save the Planet? My name is Alex Schulze, and today I am joined by Scott Jenkins from the Green Sports Alliance, where they focus on sustainability within the sports industry. Today's going to be a great conversation. Let's dive in. Scott, pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you and glad to be on your show.
Appreciate it. Well, so for the listeners, can you tell us your role and the company that you're with?
Sure. I am with the Green Sports Alliance. I'm a co-founder of the Green Sports Alliance. We're a nonprofit organization trying to drive sustainability through mainly professional sports, but also collegiate sports. We have a trade organization, and we also have a foundation. And served as a board chair for 12 years and have 30 years of experience in operating, building, managing sports venues.
I love that. So that's exciting. So I'm excited to dive into this and learn a little bit more about how you guys are influencing sustainability within the sports industry. And so from a high level, what are the main areas that you guys typically focus and target in on?
Well, getting the basics right, the low-hanging fruit. First of all, we want to walk the walk. We want to be authentic, so incredible. And waste is an issue in every building and every it's an issue for all of us at home, at work, at play. So circular solutions, zero waste initiatives are a big item for us. Conservation of resources, energy, water is really important. And then gets into all kinds of operational efficiencies and being environmentally intelligent about the choices we make, the things we buy, the things we clean our buildings with. And from a fan perspective, travel is a big issue when it comes to carbon emissions. So it's really trying to take a holistic approach of looking at our operations. And the most exciting part is can we use sport as a lever to make other people aware and support these initiatives so we can scale to make greater change.
Sure. That makes a ton of sense. I mean, when you think about the amount of people that watch, participate, go to these different events and games and things like that, I'm curious to hear, how do you guys see this as a catalyst to start the conversation? You made a good point as far as trying to get more people aware. How do you guys typically do that?
Well, when people come to a sports venue to have a good time and support their team, and people are very passionate, and most people are sports fans to some degree, a large part of the population, much larger than those who pay attention to science.
Sure.
And obviously, when we're talking about the climate and planetary systems, we're in the science lane. And so when we can demonstrate better ways of doing things, demonstrate a sense of care and responsibility, and give people actionable items that they can take, whether when they're at the ballpark or the arena, or when they go home, or when they go to work, I think we play a role in making the kind of changes that we need to make on a big scale.
Sure. Understandable. Okay. And so I'm curious to learn about your model for the viewers. How do you guys typically work with various different sports teams or stadiums or different groups, or how is your model set up?
Sure. Well, we're basically a trade organization, a nonprofit, a 501c6, and we also have a foundation, which is a C3, that focuses on the community impacts and education. But The trade organization is really the core of who we are. We've got members in almost all professional sports, a vast majority of them, and a growing collegiate membership. And we try to help them, do the right things. We have an annual summit where we bring, we just were in Miami at the beginning of this month. We had 750 people there talking about what the industry is doing. There's lots of service providers and solution providers that can help us in our sustainability journey. But zero waste initiatives is a big issue. Energy conservation, renewable energy, EVs, transportation, as I said, food. What kind of food do we have? Where's it coming from? So we really try to take a holistic approach and advise and provide resources, educate, share best practices with our members.
Got it. Understandable. And what would you say is one of the biggest hurdles that you guys run into when you see this space, and what people are interested in and determined to change or implement some type of solutions? But what do you find is the biggest hurdle?
Yeah, it usually takes someone who wants to be a champion for the issue. And it's a growing number of people that care about it. Obviously, the fans care about it. Sports fans care tremendously about the natural environment. I mean, we're all impacted by it. We all appreciate the beauty of it. We all take advantage of it with the sports that we do. So there's kind of an innate appreciation for the environment. And within the leagues, teams, and venues that we work with, our biggest challenge is really time and attention and making this a priority.
Sure.
None of us, very few of us, almost none of us are environmental experts. And yet here we are on a big stage with a big brand that's really visible, trying to do the right things. So there's some hesitation, cautiousness about what we're doing and talking about it, so that we're credible and authentic. And quite honestly, we work a whole lot. And, you're adding more to people's plates when you say, hey, business as usual isn't cutting it. Let's try some new things. So it takes the right kind of person to champion that. And to rally people, because it's a team sport. Sustainability is a team sport. We need a lot of people to do small acts intentionally to make a difference. And when we can do that in the stadiums and arenas, and show that there are better ways of doing things that protect our water systems, that protect our air, that reduce our costs, and fans can see that. And obviously, when you go to a sporting event, people consume things, right? And so what do you do with it when you're done with the waste? And when you bring 70,000 people to a football game, that's one heck of a party, and there's a lot of waste. And when I started in the business in the 90s, early mid-90s, I was just, wow, this is a mess. And it was like, hey, let's make it go away. And 30 years ago, it was just, let's make it go away. And you realize there is no way. I mean, there's the oceans, there's the land, there's the air, and it doesn't magically go away. And I think we're coming to realize that now with the nanoplastics that are in every part of the planet, and we're breathing it in the air we breathe, in the water we drink, in the soils, it's everywhere. And 30 years ago, we hardly had any plastic bottles. So in just 30 years, what's happened in the oceans and what's happening on the land and in the food systems and in our bodies has changed dramatically. And I think people are aware of that and concerned about their health. First and foremost, concerned about the health of the planet. And obviously there's the climate issue. With all the carbon emissions and climate change, that's driving significant challenges for everybody. Sport's no different.
Sure. And you mentioned something there as far as it doesn't go away. That's one of the things that I had the opportunity of realizing that in Bali, Indonesia. Seeing large volumes of plastic on the coastlines there. I think in Florida, growing up on the water, I've been very fortunate to not have to really witness this plastic on the shorelines, in the ocean, because here we have a great waste management infrastructure, and to a lot of consumers, they really do think that it just goes away. And I think that what we're seeing now with the exportation of plastic and all these different areas, and seeing the footage and the videos of these massive tsunamis of plastic just ending up on these coastlines around the world, it's definitely coming to light as far as the issue that we have with plastic and what needs to be done. So I think that's a huge point that back, like you said, the priority a long time ago was make it go away. But now it's realizing that there is no way. And so how do we design a system that's more circular, reduce the waste materials, and try and find a more sustainable path forward to still have fun, right? Still have the amazing event, still have these amazing sports things, but being able to do it in a way that reduces the impact overall.
Yeah, and there are solutions. I mean, we did. It's kind of interesting. In the last few years, there's a big push in our industry for reusable cups, reusable, food service items. And, long ago, we didn't have single-use items. This idea of convenience, and ease of use, and then just making it go away, took hold in society, and we just kept consuming more and more. And unfortunately, more and more is packaged in plastic. And that plastic doesn't go away. And the stuff you see in the ocean and on the beaches, is an eyesore and a problem, and it's bad for sea life. But it's the small particles of plastic that's in our everyday life now, because it's so pervasive that it's going to affect our health if it isn't already. When newborn babies have plastic particles in their bloodstreams and in their organs, and they haven't even walked one day on this earth on their own. And we have it in our bodies. We breathe it, we eat it, and who knows what that's going to do to us. So we've got to get off of the single-use stuff, and we got to clean up the oceans, and we got to clean up our air, and we got to quit pumping carbon into the atmosphere. We're in a little snow globe in the Earth, and that atmosphere is pretty small, and we rely on it for health and prosperity, and we got to quit trashing it.
Yes, I completely understand. And I think as far as the circular solutions, you mentioned the reusables that you're seeing. What solutions are you seeing in the space, especially when it comes to the sports industry? Like, what are some innovation that has happened? What is some innovation that has happened, or things that you feel that are making strides when it comes to cutting down on waste?
Well, we've made a conscious effort over the 15 years that we've been around with the Green Sports Alliance, and even before that, kind of the precursor to the Green Sports Alliance, we were focused on waste diversion strategies. And so we were more interested in trying to keep it out of the landfill. And I remember meeting with some people from the EPA back then, and they were excited we were getting into this and tracking and measuring. And we made some big improvements just because we started tracking and sharing ideas with our counterparts in the industry. But the woman that I was talking with said, well, our first priority is we got to reduce waste. And I was like, well, how do you reduce waste? I mean, 70,000 people come to the stadium, and you serve all these items, and then when they're done, you got to get rid of them. And so let's not put it in a landfill. Let's recycle. Let's compost. And I was like, wow, well, that's true. But how do we do that? And it's really going back to just reusable items for the most part, and sourcing products from in a way that's environmentally preferable. Compostable food service items is a big solution in our business. And when I first started tracking what kind of diversion rate we had in a baseball stadium, we were around 15% diversion rate. And at the time, the San Francisco Giants had, I think, like a 40% diversion rate. I go, wow, how do they do that? But they had regulation in San Francisco that said they had to achieve a 70% diversion rate or they'd get fined. So, there's usually the carrot and the stick to motivate people. Well, they had a stick. And they started sorting their trash, and they started buying more compostable food service items and recycling and composting. And over a number of years, all of a sudden they were at 70, and all of a sudden they were at 90. And we started seeing, well, there are ways to do this.
Yeah.
If we manage the supply chain, and if we put, the effort into it to educate the fans and create the right collection system, and then sorting, of course, to get to high diversion rates. And there are a number of professional sports teams now that divert over 90% of their waste from the landfill.
It's incredible.
So we made some big progress, but there's a proliferation of plastic bottles and prepackaged beverages, and it's not just the container that's an issue; it's all the carbon emissions of packaging it somewhere else. Putting it in a case, putting it on a pallet, shrink wrapping it, putting it on a truck, driving it to the venue, distributing it around the venue. And so when I was in Atlanta with opening up Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where I was the general manager, we used fountain soda all over the ballpark, all over the stadium, in compostable cups. And so the guests could serve themselves with the fountain and get good value, and you didn't have all that packaged beverages that had to be delivered to the site and then dealt with later. We still had the cup that we had to compost. And then fast forward to the last project I did, which was CPKC Stadium for the Kansas City Current. It's the first professional women's sports venue dedicated to women in the world. We opened up the building without any plastic bottles, and we used 100% reusable cups throughout the building. So
amazing.
Beer was in a cup, soda was in a reusable cup, drinks, cocktails, serviceware, and sweets. So we really, really made a big step forward, saying, hey, we're not going to serve plastic, single-use plastic, and we're going to use reusable cups throughout the venue. So there are solutions, but you have to be intentional, and you got to be committed to it. And if you just do business as usual, people are just chasing money and looking for the best way to make a buck, and then maybe turning their back on it. If they're generating a lot of waste and at least they're diverting it, recycling it, you got to give people credit for that. But we really got to get to a higher order solution, which is let's not create the waste in the first place.
I completely agree. And that's amazing to hear. I mean, numbers such as 90% of waste diverted, being able to go with zero plastic in some of these facilities as far as beverages. And I think it's proactive steps like that that are really moving the needle. And, you mentioned something there as far as when it comes to consumers and it comes to the price and people just trying to make a quick buck, right? I do know that the pricing model of a lot of these sustainable initiatives tend to be the barriers of entry, right? A lot of stadiums, a lot of just businesses as a whole think that sustainability is incredibly expensive and is purely an expense. And I'd like to connect and get your thoughts on that, because what we have found and what we're really advocating for is when done appropriately, not greenwashing, but taking the necessary steps and doing it in the authentic way, brands are finding that they're getting a return on investment for sustainable-based initiatives, because consumers nowadays, they want to see the results. Like they're learning the impact that all these materials, that all this plastic packaging is having on the world, And so what we have found is that a lot of our consumers are willing to pay a little bit more for something sustainable. They're willing to commit to something that might be not as convenient, but is much better for the planet. And while I know that historically it has been the opposite side of the spectrum in terms of people just want convenience, they just want it now, they don't really care about it, we're really starting to see that trend where the needle is moving. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how you guys leverage the sustainability initiatives to help your partners and your clients be able to drive results overall.
Yeah, and finances, economics are a driver. There's no question about it. I wish everybody cared about the environment enough to invest and spend more money to do the right thing. And there are people that will do that, but we're all businesses. And so if you can speak the language of business and have it make sense and develop an ROI around sustainability initiatives, it makes it really easy to get to the boardroom level and the executives and say, here's why we're doing this and here's the results. So you got to think about it, and you've got to put yourself in the shoes of the CFO, the president, the owner.
Of course.
And of course, if the owner says, hey, I want to do the right thing for the planet, then you've got the green light. But what I like better is when you make the business case and you win that argument. Because then everybody can replicate that. Not everybody can replicate an owner that says, I care about this, let's do it. God bless you if that's the case, and I wish there were more owners like that, and there are a bunch out there, but not enough. So we got to make the business case, and sustainability drives efficiency, and efficiency reduces costs. So that's the first driver. When I'm not spending money to send things to the landfill and I'm getting money back for bales of aluminum or bales of cardboard, I've taken that commodity, I've made it a commodity, and I've made it a revenue stream instead of an expense to send it to the landfill. If I get more efficient on my fixtures and a better maintenance on my plumbing systems, I get really quick returns. LED lighting is ubiquitous now, but when we did Mercedes-Benz Stadium and opened it in 2017, we paid $1 million extra to make sure we had all LED lighting, and the payback was something like 3 years to do that. It makes no sense to put inefficient things in a building or to have inefficient HVAC. And that's why I like the USGBC, United States Green Building Council LEED certification, because it sets standards to drive performance above the code. And I look at the code as kind of baseline. If you're a C student or a D student and you're happy with that, build a building and build it by code. But none of us like to be there. We'd rather be higher performing. And there are ROIs when you're higher performing, from an expense standpoint and efficiency standpoint. But there's also other value proposition around it, and that's engaging your employees and engaging your fans. And so that relates to brand value. And what does your brand represent? And what kind of choices are consumers making, or what kind of choices are employees making? And so you build value around your brand by doing the right things. You do the efficient things, and then you start to partner with people that want to partner with you because you represent something better. We were LEED Platinum certified at Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Amazing.
And that was part of our pitch. We went out and found our founding partners, our name rights partnership. We have this beautiful building, and we have this representing quality and representing something that the vast majority of fans care about in their personal values. So you're creating value when you do it right. And obviously you need capital to invest in certain things, whether it's improvements to HVAC, lighting, solar panels, whatever. But you can get creative. I mean, I did a power purchase agreement in the Phoenix area at the Mariners training complex when we did a remodel. And we didn't pay any extra money for it. Someone else put up the capital, and we went from getting LEED silver certified to LEED gold, largely because we were a lot more efficient. Oh. We had renewable energy, and those panels are delivering energy on site, and better yet, shaded parking. And who wants to park in an asphalt parking lot in Phoenix, in the sun? So it's an improvement in the experience. And so there's lots of ways to create value around sustainability, but you have to do hard work. It's not easy. You can't just mail it in and show up and do business as usual. You got to think about it. You got to be deliberate. You got to make the business case. And I'll argue when you do, you're going to create value. And if you don't, you're wasting money and you're wasting our future.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's an incredible point. And that's it's cases like that I can really appreciate as well, is that submitting the financial breakdown, the return on investment. Like for something like LEDs, like that's just it's a no-brainer, right? For 3 years to get your investment back. I mean, and who knows what the lifespan. I mean, LED's lifespan is incredible. So you just think about all the different aspects of a LEED certified building is that's incredible. And I'm glad to see that there are so many different businesses and complexes that are interested in doing the work and really trying to help out. Because I mean, at the end of the day, that's what's gonna move the needle with the footprint of these large facilities.
Yeah, and adopting innovation. I mean, there's always some risk in being an early mover. I know when we were looking at trying to save on our electric bill at Safeco Field, where the Mariners play, it's now T-Mobile Park, we did a lot of lighting improvements around LEDs, and it was kind of new back then. And sports lighting, we're using old technology, metal halide lights, and they're really inefficient. It's really a poor quality light. They don't last terribly long, so you've got to spend money maintaining them. And working with an entrepreneur who was doing some lighting in the Boeing factories at the time, and there's human performance issues too with lighting if you have good quality lighting versus crappy light. Really, we were playing under crappy light under Major League Baseball in every ballpark in Major League Baseball and throughout the sports industry. And what started off for trying to find out more efficient ways to bring in LED lighting so that we could operate the ballpark more efficiently and not turn on those sports lights that sucked a lot of energy. We ended up saying, well, what if we just replace them with LED sports lights? And so the Mariners were the first to do that. And those lights have been in there. I think this is the 11th season now, and metal halides would have lasted 3 years maybe.
Yep.
And the color shift and the uniformity would have been terrible over time. And so you get a better quality light. You use a fraction of the energy. They haven't been replaced in over 10 years, and it changed the game. And so now everybody plays under LED lights. So that was a little risky being the first to do it. But you've got a forge in the ground, and there is technology that you can employ that is more efficient, that provides a better result from your business standpoint and environmentally.
That's amazing. And you mentioned the game changer. That is a big one, right? Going from 2 to 3 years, changing out these. I mean, a lot of labor, a lot of time and energy, going to something that's lasting 10 years and is still running at a more efficient rate. What do you think in the industry is another one of these game changers that you think needs to come about, whether it's a portion or an area of the events and facilities that you believe needs to kind of be disrupted, or another area that you think just needs kind of a game-changing solution? What do you think is something out there that needs to be addressed in the industry?
When you look at the sports industry, and it's not to pick on sports because whatever we do, we all have the same issues. At home, at work, at school, at play, and when you look at the carbon and environmental impacts of a sports team or sports venue, transportation is the number one issue relative to carbon emissions, because with so many people drive cars and come from all over, and if you fly, it's significantly more. So where venues are located is probably the single biggest determinant about the environmental impact of that venue. The closer you are to density and public transit, and the fewer people that drive, the lower the carbon impact's going to be from that event. So public transportation is key. Carpooling, efficient vehicles, the shift from combustion to EVs is going to help. So that's point one. Point two is we got to quit burning fossil fuels to power our lives, and our sports venues that power from the grid mostly. Obviously, we got to green the grid, and if we green the grid and we get more renewable resources, then everybody's consuming renewable energy. So we have to make these systemic changes on where our energy comes from, and we got to get rid of fossil fuels. So travel, fossil fuels, powering the grid. And then just waste. We got to reduce waste, and that's where I think reuse is a big driver right now, because it's so energy intensive, carbon intensive, material intensive to have single use items. Everything that goes into that item that shows up for just use for maybe an hour, maybe 30 minutes, and then now we got to get rid of it.
Yes.
So the use it and throw it away kind of mentality, we need to shift out of that and get into reusables.
Yes, completely understand. Well, that's amazing. And if there was one misconception about the industry, what do you think it would be? Whether that's sustainability or just the sports industry as a whole, what's one misconception that you believe should be addressed?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if there's anything that jumps out at me as a misconception. I think the biggest thing is the power that sports has to play a role in shifting behavior, and whether it's fan behavior, whether it's public policy, whether it's businesses. We have played a role over the last 15 years with the Green Sports Alliance in pointing ourselves in the right direction. We just aren't moving fast enough. And so the thing that I wring my hands about is we have the answers, we know the solutions, we're well aware of the problems, and quite honestly, they're catastrophic if we don't solve them. I mean, just the plastic crisis in the oceans is unbelievable. And the fact that it's everywhere and now in the air we breathe and the food we eat, the drinks we drink. We don't know what those health impacts are. We've changed, how we interact with the environment, and we've polluted it, and it doesn't go away. So we got to get rid of that habit. We got to get rid of the habit of burning fossil fuels to power our lives, to power transportation. And so I don't think there's a misconception there. There's just a missed opportunity where we have the solutions and we're not taking advantage of them, and we're so short-sighted to think of day-to-day making choices and really using business as usual is how we operate, and then ignoring all the warning bells and all the warning signs that are going on out there. I mean, it's actually really scary what we're seeing and what the scientists are seeing. And when you look at climate change, the projections in the future of where things are going to go, we're already on the far end of what those projections were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that they underestimated the impacts. And so that just means we have less time to react, and the impacts to our lives are going to be greater, and we can't wait.
Understandable. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed our conversation. If someone wants to learn more about Green Sports Alliance and get in touch with you, what's the best way to learn more?
Well, look us up on the internet, greensportsalliance.org. You'll find a lot of things there. We have playbooks that we have available on different topics. So if people are interested in, zero waste, circular economy solutions, making the business case for sustainability, driving revenues, developing a sustainability strategy. The strategy and the revenue are two playbooks we just published at the summit this year. But we have them on water, we have them on energy. We have quite a few, and then we've got webinars that we host monthly. And occasional regional symposiums. So if people are in the sports industry and interested, we'd love to have more people join as members, and just pay attention to what's going on out there and make smart choices. We have the solutions. We just have to be intentional about what we do.
Love it. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time, and it was great talking to you about sustainability in the sports industry, buddy. Have a great day. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate for having me.
All right, guys, that was a great conversation. It's really exciting to learn about all the things happening within the sports industry. I mean, there's so many small wins from replacing single-use plastics to be using reusables to LED lighting. I mean, there's just a lot of quick wins that these different industries can realize in a short period of time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Do not forget to like, subscribe, give us some feedback, give us some comments. What do you guys want us to dive into? Until then, we're going to be asking, can business save the planet? See you soon, guys.